People used to say that Tony Jaa was the future of martial arts movies. He shocked the globe with his raw and authentic deeds in movies like Ong-Bak and Tom-Yum-Goong. It looked like nothing could stop it, but behind the scenes, his narrative took a totally different path, one full of stress, betrayal, and decisions that would destroy his career forever. What really happened to Tony Jaa, and why do so many admirers say his story is so sad? Come with us as we learn about the rise, fall, and legacy of a man who changed action cinema forever. Like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. From fields to fame. Tony Jaa was born and raised in Surin Province, a small area of Thailand. His family resided on land where they grew rice. Rensipe and Thong De-yum, his parents, worked hard hours in the fields. Their lives were pretty much the same all the time, planting, taking care of, and harvesting rice depending on the season. The weather, the farm's needs, and simple duties shaped the days. The city didn't have bright lights or busy streets. And there are no movie theaters close by. But now, best to the bone. Yes, I look my best. This calm, stable life was the only one Tony knew at first. Even so, the world outside the fields touched him in little ways. Villagers went to temple fairs. People saw movies and shows at those fairs. Tony saw photographs of fighters and heroes on the huge screens. He saw Bruce Lee, Jet Li and Jackie Chan. He had never seen men move like that in his own village. He couldn't stop thinking about how fast, in control, and brave they were. Tony felt something fresh when he watched them. He didn't think of them as just actors. He thought they were demonstrations of strength and beauty in motion. He remarked later, "It was so beautiful and heroic that I wanted to do it too." Tony started to mimic what he had seen after seeing those movies. He practiced kicks, punches, and flips in the rice fields. He did the same exercises again and over for hours until his body started to recall them. He used the fields to train. There weren't any teachers from big schools. There weren't any mirrors or new training instruments. He had determination and the pictures of the heroes he looked up to. Tony started doing martial arts for real when he was 10. He began to learn Muay Thai at the temple in his area. This gym didn't have any current equipment. Local masters and elder warriors taught the students how to fight. They didn't learn from books, they learned from experience. They showed him how to stand, how to strike, and how to be disciplined enough to train every day. The training was tough and muscular, but it was similar to the rigorous work he was used to from working on a farm. Tony started to fight in tiny local matches as he got stronger. A lot of the time, these fights were hard and simple. They put his body and mind to the test. He learned a little more about timing, pain, and attention with each fight. People in the vicinity began to notice a young fighter who practiced in a small temple and moved with purpose. Tony's early years in Surin were the building blocks for everything that followed after. He possessed skill, discipline, and a strong desire to be more than what his environment had planned for him. Next, you'll learn how a random meeting altered his life for good. Stuck in the dark. When Tony Jaa met a man who would change everything for him, his life changed in a big way. Pana Ridikrai was the man. He was a famous stuntman and director in Thailand. Pana was already known for making action scenes that were both risky and spectacular. He knew Tony was exceptional when he saw how naturally talented, fast, and dedicated he was. Pana asked Tony to be a part of his stunt squad. This was Tony's first real move into the world of movies. He thought it was a chance to move closer to his goal of being like the idols he looked up to as a child. Being on the stunt crew wasn't glamorous at all. For the next 14 years, Tony worked as a background actor and stunt double. He was in charge of doing things that actors couldn't or wouldn't do. This meant that there were deadly falls, high jumps, and fight scenes where even the smallest error may lead to terrible injury. People would applaud for the stars in the final movies, but Tony was the one who was putting his life on the line behind the scenes. One of the most spectacular exploits from his early career revealed how far he was willing to go. Tony had to jump on an elephant's back and hang onto its tusks while the animal moved in a commercial. It was practically hard to do this because of the timing and balance, but Tony did it. This kind of labor required a lot of physical power and complete focus. He got a lot of bruises, sprains, and other injuries over time, but he didn't complain very often. He thought that every painful fall was just part of the process. Not many people knew Tony's name, even though he was doing his best. The actor he was double for nearly always got the credit. Tony stayed out of the spotlight while others embraced the fame. But these years were not a waste. He was quietly acquiring the skills that would someday astonish the world. He learned how to be precise, have excellent control over his body, and know when to act through stunts that no school could teach. Every battle scene, every risky act, and every long day on set taught me something. After those 14 years, Tony was more than just a stuntman. He was ready for his chance, and it came sooner than anyone thought. Tony would soon come out of the shadows and into the forefront with a movie that everyone would have to see. No one saw it coming. Finally, in 2003, Tony Jaa got the chance he had been waiting for. He had been a stuntman in the background for years before getting the starring role in Ong-Bak, Muay Thai Warrior. Most people had never seen anything like this movie before. There were no wires pulling him up, no computer effects to make the moves look more exciting, and no stunt doubles to take his place. Every punch, kick, and flip and fall was Tony himself. What people were viewing was pure athletic skill and years of hard work presented immediately on the screen. The procedure of filming was both perilous and impressive. A lot of the feats in Ong-Bak strained Tony's physique much beyond what it could normally do. He hurt himself a lot while filming, including tearing ligaments and spraining his ankle. He pushed himself to get better rapidly and keep going every time. He knew this was his only chance to show what he could do. One of the scariest parts was when Tony's pants caught fire as he was fighting opponents. This was not a computerized effect that was under control. There was genuine fire searing his body. The flames spread swiftly and burned his eyebrows, eyelashes, and even sections of his nose. Most people would have quit right away, but Tony didn't. He continued going even though it hurt. He finished the take since he knew how vital the scene was to the movie. The team had to film the sequence more than once to make it even more extreme. Tony didn't hesitate to go through with it. There was a lot of excitement when Ong-Bak came out. People all over the world were shocked by what they witnessed. The bouts were rough, quick, and violent. Lacks the polished look that a lot of martial arts movies had back then. People could feel the weight of every hit and see how dangerous every stunt was. People who liked and didn't like Tony Jaa right away started to compare him to Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Jet Li. Some people even called him the new Bruce Lee, which is a designation only given to people who really changed the martial arts world. This movie was the big break that made Tony an international sensation, going from being an obscure stuntman to being famous. But Tony wasn't done yet. His next movie would go even further and make things even more dangerous. Raising the stakes, after Ong-Bak was a smash, Tony Jaa had to prove that it wasn't just a fluke. He came back in 2005 with Tom-Yum-Goong, which was released around the world as The Protector. This movie elevated the stakes in every aspect and provided Tony an opportunity to display a different side of his inventiveness and affinity to Thai culture. The story was mostly on elephants, which are very important in Thailand. People are proud of elephants and see them as a national emblem. They are connected to the country's past, its customs, and even its religious beliefs. Tony's character in the movie goes to Australia to save his stolen elephants. This simple plot offered him a deep emotional purpose and also helped him show Thai culture to people all over the world. Tony not only included elephants in the tale, but he also came up with a unique way to fight for the movie. He named it the Muay Thai elephant style because his punches and grappling actions were like those of elephants, strong, heavy, and unyielding. This made the action not only fun to watch, but also connected to history. A scene that became famous in the world of action movies was one of the best parts of the movie. Tony fought for 4 minutes straight in a restaurant, going from the bottom level to the top. The camera never cut away, so every punch, throw, and kick had to be flawless. Tony fought dozens of people along the road, utilizing things around him as weapons and showing off his extraordinary strength. It felt like he was going through levels of a task, with each enemy getting harder. By the time he got to the top, the crowd was out of breath since they had witnessed something utterly fresh. Tom-Yum-Goong had a huge effect. It made Tony known not just as a martial artist, but also as a film business pioneer. He wasn't merely copying Ong-Bak's formula. He was moving the genre ahead with bold ideas and flawless execution. Other martial arts stars even noticed. Donnie Yen, who is one of the most revered figures in the business, said in an interview that he needed to step up his own fight choreography after watching Tony Jaa. That one sentence highlighted how much Tony's work had changed everything in such a short time. Tony Jaa showed that he wasn't a one-hit wonder with Tom-Yum-Goong. He was come to transform the way martial arts movies are made. But as he became more famous, he had to deal with new problems, and things were starting to fall apart behind the scenes. Betrayal behind fame. After Ong-Bak and Tom-Yum-Goong came out, Tony Jaa was no longer just another martial artist attempting to establish a name for himself. He had become the face of Thai martial arts movies, and he was proud of his country and the aspirations of people all over the world. People wanted more amazing action, more risky stunts, and more movies that went beyond what was possible. Every time Tony did well, the pressure on him intensified. It was necessary for each new endeavor to be bigger, faster, and more impressive than the one before it. There were also artistic challenges on top of the physical ones. Tony was not only the star of the movies, but he was also getting more involved in making them. He had never had this much responsibility before, and it was starting to get to him. His connection with his mentor, Pana Ridikrai, was one of the hardest things he had to deal with. Pana was the one who found Tony, taught him, and showed him how to work in the movie business. For years, they worked together, with Pana directing and Tony bringing the action to life. But as Tony became more famous, their ideas on things became more different. They started to differ on the artistic direction, especially about the types of projects Tony should work on. One project that people were really looking forward to, a movie called Sword, was cancelled because they couldn't agree on it. Fans never got to see what may have happened, and rumors of friction between the kid and the teacher started to spread. Neither Punna nor Tony talked about their fight in public, but it was evident that something had changed. At the same time, chances were starting to show up outside of Thailand. Jackie Chan, one of Tony's childhood heroes, tried to get him to be in Rush Hour 3. This could have changed Tony's life. It was an opportunity for him to break into Hollywood and work with a world-famous actor. But the time just didn't work out. Tony was already set to work on Ong-Bak 2, a huge movie being made in Thailand. He had to say no to the offer because of his duties and loyalties. This felt like a missed chance for many fans that could have helped him move up in his career. At first, these cracks, the growing expectations, the problems with his mentor, and the missed chances were small, but they were the start of a tough time for Tony Jaa. Soon, those pressures would push Tony to his limit, which would lead to one of the biggest changes in his career. Fall apart on set. Tony Jaa's next big challenge after 2 successful movies was Ong-Bak Tuesday. He was supposed to be able to handle an even bigger production and show off his skills as a filmmaker as well as a fighter. The movie was very ambitious, with bigger stunts, more complicated sets, and more complicated fight choreography. But behind the camera, things were very different. Things quickly got out of hand on set. Budgets got bigger, schedules got longer, and pressure came from all sides. Tony had more to do than ever before, and it was starting to show. Things took a shocking turn in the middle of filming. Without warning, Tony left the set. For weeks, nobody knew where he had gone. Later, it was revealed that he had fled to a Buddhist monastery. The move sparked endless rumors. Some said he had suffered a mental breakdown from the stress. Others believed he was simply exhausted, both physically and emotionally, after years of pushing his body and spirit to their absolute limit. Whatever the reason, his sudden retreat left the film's future uncertain and raised serious questions about whether Tony could continue. Eventually, Tony returned to finish the project. Ong-Bak 2 was completed and released. And while it contained brutal fight scenes and showcased his remarkable talent, the movie itself felt uneven. The behind-the-scenes struggles were clear in the final product. Some fans admired the intensity of the action, but many noticed that the story was messy and the energy that had once defined Tony's work seemed harder to find. The situation did not improve with Ong-Bak 3. The sequel followed directly after the events of the second film, but by this time, the problems of the past production weighed heavily. The film lacked the spark and excitement of his earlier work. The action was still present, but it felt slower, more restrained, and less inspired. Viewers sensed that Tony himself was drained. What had once been fresh and full of fire now seemed like an obligation rather than a passion. What occurred next astonished everyone. Tony stepped away from movies totally and entered a monastery for real. Fleeing to the temple. In 2010, after years of stress, strain, and constant physical punishment, Tony Jaa made a decision that stunned almost everyone. He turned away from the filmmaking industry and entered a Buddhist monastery. There, he was officially ordained as a monk. For someone who had been in the spotlight, performing dangerous stunts and carrying the hopes of an entire industry, this was a dramatic change. Instead of long film shoots and demanding fight scenes, his days were now spent in meditation, prayer, and simple routines inside the temple. Tony's choice was more than just a pause in his career. It was an escape. By that moment, he had faced relentless demands from studios. The exhaustion of filming Ong-Bak 2 and 3, and the weight of being considered as the future of martial arts movie. His body had been pushed to the verge, and emotionally, he was depleted. Life inside the temple provided him an opportunity to breathe. It afforded him calm and silence that he couldn't get on a film set. It helped him recuperate and go back to normal after years of stress. This choice was not out of the ordinary in Thailand. Temporary ordination is a well-respected custom. At some point throughout their life, a lot of Thai males spend time as monks. For some, it lasts only a few weeks. For others, several months. It is seen as a method to honor one's family, to achieve merit, and to reflect on life. In Tony's case, it was also about stepping away from the pandemonium that had surrounded him for so long. Within Thai society, his choice was accepted and respected as part of a spiritual journey. When he returned, it wasn't only back to movies. It was also the start of a new chapter in his life. Tony Jaa slowly started to get his life back to normal after he left the monastery. For years, cameras, perilous stunts, and constant pressure from the film industry had filled his life. But in 2012, he made a big change in his personal life that brought him something quite different from recognition or success. He tied the knot. Tony married his longtime fiancée, Parrot Chodawatan. Before he became famous around the world, she had been with him. Their connection was based on trust and familiarity, not on being famous. Their wedding wasn't about getting attention or exposure in Hollywood. It was about finding stability and starting over. Not long after that, Tony and Parrot had a child. They had 2 daughters together. Tony had never been a father before, so this was a new role for him. One where his strength and attention were not on action scenes, but on being a good parent. This phase of his life offered him something to hold on to and make him feel like a human after years of traveling for movies and putting his body on the line for his job. His kids reminded him that there was more to life than what fans wanted or what studios needed. For a while, it looked like Tony had discovered the right balance. He was no longer under stress from all the productions he had to do or from being seen as the new Bruce Lee. Instead, he was spending time with his wife and girls, making a stable and quiet family life. People who knew him well said that this time brought him tranquility. It was different from the years before, when he was in the middle of hard productions and public rumors. But that comeback came with a hidden fight that comprised contracts, control, and heartache. The chains of the studio. Many fans didn't know that there was a real-life story behind Tony Jaa's ascent to fame as an action actor. He was connected to Sahamunkle Film, one of Thailand's top studios, from the start of his career. At first, this alliance seemed like a good idea. The studio offered him the chance to make the movies that made him famous, Ong-Bak and Tom-Yum-Goong. But behind the accomplishment came a deal that gave Tony very little say over his own career. Tony couldn't work on movies outside of Sahamunkle because the deal was exclusive. Without their permission. They choose what projects he worked on, how much he worked, and even how much money he made. In return, the studio agreed to keep them safe. They also helped support his family, which was very important in Thai culture. It is your duty to help your parents and relatives. and Sahamunkel utilized the duty to keep him close to them. At first, it looked like protection, but soon it turned into a chain around his freedom. This power comes at a high price over time. Tony wanted to grow, take out new roles, and collaborate with directors from other countries. But the contract made it hard for most of those things to happen. People all around the world wanted him to make more movies after his first ones, but he was locked in Thailand filming sequels and studio ventures. This was challenging for an artist who had already displayed amazing originality in his fighting style. Not because he wasn't talented, but because of the conditions of a pact, his career was being curtailed. Tony made the decision to leave in 2013. He knew he had to take advantage of the opportunity before it was too late. Sahamunkel, on the other hand, wasn't ready to let him go. The studio took him to court to stop him from joining Fast and Furious 7. They even asked for $50 million in damages, which was so high that it shocked the whole industry. The case took a long time and made things very difficult for Tony. Everyone thought Tony would shine when Hollywood finally opened its doors, but what happened next told a very different story. Hollywood's empty promise. Tony Jaa left the Thai studio system and started a new phase of his career in which Hollywood finally took notice of him. He was in big international movies like Fast and Furious, 7, XXX, and Return of Xander Cage. He worked with stars like Vin Diesel and other martial artists like Donnie Yen on those projects. For a lot of people, seeing Tony with famous people from around the world made them feel like he had made it big. What happened next showed how different the international film system can be from the Thai movies that made him famous. Tony's roles in Hollywood movies were frequently smaller and more about action than about character. He was asked to do important battle scenes in showpieces, but he didn't always get extensive periods of dialogue or character development. He often only had time to do set pieces where his physical skills were most important. Even as he moved, the audience could still see how fast, balanced, and accurate he was. Those moments reminded people why he had become a star. Yet these flashes of brilliance were framed inside larger movies where he was not the main driver of story or emotion. A common claim was that Tony struggled in Hollywood because of language, that his English held him back from bigger parts. That explanation is only part of the story. By 2014, Tony was giving interviews in English and handling media appearances with growing confidence. Language was not the main barrier. The larger issue was the way international productions use action stars. Casting choices, franchise rules, and production practices often limit what a guest star can do. Fight choreography and on-set decisions are controlled by multiple teams. So a performer who once had creative freedom in Thailand could find himself constrained abroad. The result was a mixed picture. On film, Tony still delivered impressive action. Off film, the industry systems and the kinds of parts he was offered impacted how he might be shown to the world. Fans saw talent and flashes of brilliance, but they also saw a great performer placed inside a different set of rules, fewer chances to lead. The flame fading after breaking free from Sahamunkel, Tony Jaa continued to work, but his career never returned to the same explosive heights of the early 2000s. He took part in several Western projects, including Skin Trade, Never Back Down, No Surrender, and the ensemble action film Triple Threat, where he starred alongside other martial arts names like Iko Uwais, Scott Adkins, and Tiger Chen. These movies gave him a chance to show his skills to international audiences, and in each of them there were moments where his speed and physical reminded people of why he had once been hailed as the next great martial arts icon. But even with these projects, something felt different. None of them captured the same electricity that Ong-Bak or Tom-Yum-Goong had created. The choreography was solid, but the energy was missing. The daring stunts, the savage innovation, and the impression of watching something no one had seen before, those qualities had been related to the particular conditions of his Thai films. In Western cinema, where safety rules, budgets, and choreography teams molded every move, that raw and unfiltered approach could not fully return. One notable feature is that since 2013, Tony Jaa has not appeared in a single Thai production. The same country that had brought him from a rice field in the country to international screens no longer showed him in its movies. Some of this is because of the legal fights and bad feelings with Sahamunkel, which made it hard to get home. Ironically, Thailand was where Tony had the most freedom and control over his work. But those chances were gone, and when he worked abroad, he often had to take on supporting roles and work within systems that offered him much less control over how bouts were shot or how his characters were shown. This formed a painful contrast. Tony Jaa's path had originally been the story of a farmer's son who transformed the world of martial arts cinema, inspiring millions and proving that mere effort could create something unforgettable. But contracts burn out. And the institutions of the global industry modified that story. He remained energetic, still capable of moving with speed and power, but the fire had shifted. It was no longer the inferno of Ong-Bak that raged across the planet. Instead, it became a smaller, flickering flame, still alive, but no longer blazing at full might. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe, and click the bell symbol so you never miss another story like this one.